Blake canceled our guys' night, and I'm still not over it.
Yeah.
But I also know I'm completely kidding. His reasons were like, I just
Maybe
need to
you
find.
and I should go out instead.
Let's go. Let him and Megan work on the house.
They love it.
Yeah.
Everybody
Call Jordan.
wins. Yeah, everybody wins.
Yep.
Honestly, that could be a crew.
Yeah.
Blake, Jordan, and Megan, and then us three. Like we
Yes.
just come up here and make stuff.
Yes.
Sounds delightful.
It kind of would rock. Anyway,
So
I
he
just understand.
canceled
Because he was just busy. Work's been busy. He's like, I got to strike a balance at home. And it's like, I completely understand
Yeah.
that immediately. But if I was like a single guy and hadn't been around people for like 10 days and just in my
Sure.
house, I'd be like, oh, man, okay, you know.
Yeah.
Also,
Well-
time out. Is that a blanket and can I use it?
Are you cold?
I'm freezing.
Oh, sweet boy.
Thank you. I'm about to look like an absolute pimp.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yo! That's a high compliment.
That was a fun time.
Yeah.
We need to do that more.
By the way, I did start, so just.
Oh.
She did the old 5-0.
Yeah.
That's what Blake says on set.
Oh, why?
If you want me to start recording this without telling the talent that we're recording, just say 5-0. 5-0 this. It's like a set thing.
But what does that mean?
don't
Like,
know.
what that derive from?
Couldn't tell you. Rumor has it used to be 50-50. I have no idea because I know nothing about film sets. I'm just like a dude with a camera that makes things.
I have questions about a lot of those, like, things that they just call stuff. I'm like, but where did that come from?
Right. Well, yeah.
Anyway.
If I was more interested, I would talk about it. I'm
love
busy.
it. I
Sorry, I'm
love
busy.
That's funny. Alicia, you should introduce Nate.
Oh, okay. I don't even know what to say. You're just the absolute best.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's very kind.
Yep.
So, Alexis and I have been talking about just vibing with different people, and Nate Pfeil is someone who came up in the conversation because he's very intelligent, but also normal. Like, he's not like the weird smart, he's the good smart.
Wow.
And
like it.
therefore very relatable and talkable, but not like dumb like I can be sometimes. Like words and stuff.
Wow.
Same.
He's also a very talented filmmaker,
Artist.
reader.
I don't know.
Intellectual.
Not sure about
Yep.
any of that, but
Yep.
it's very kind of you. Thank you.
I'll say personally, from my own perspective, Nate, you are somebody that has always like gently challenged me to think bigger and better and question things in a really good, healthy way. And I'm very thankful for
That's
it.
awesome and surprising. I love it. Thank you for telling me those
Good
things.
job. Way to keep going
Right.
in life.
We should normalize like getting all your friends together to talk about you. in a
Yeah.
good way.
Really deep, awkward compliments.
Just like once a year, eulogize me while I'm still here. You know?
See?
Do you hear
This is
them?
what I'm
Like,
talking about.
you'll remember this conversation, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
See, people give me compliments, and I'm like,
Alexis,
anyway, the
she's-
weather. It's like,
She has flat out asked me to stop talking about it.
Yeah, I sense her bristle every time I say something. Like even today, I walked in, I was like, "That's sick." She's like, "Ah, thanks." I was like, "Oh my bad."
Next.
No, not really, but it's like a thing I've sensed. Yeah.
Sure.
that's funny.
Well,
Do you
that's
like
very
my
kind.
pancakes? You know what she's called?
It seems so out of context. Do you like my pancakes? For the record, we're sitting in here at Stoics because that's what the podcast is called.
Mm-hmm.
And Alexis has started a new painting that's hanging up, and there's pancakes involved.
Yeah.
But it's also really cool because it feels super creative in here. There's like paint everywhere and books and stuff.
My clothes.
Yeah, she's got paint all over. She looks the part.
Yeah.
What is it called?
It's gonna be called the social anxiety.
I thought that she was having her birthday at her house alone and emotionally eating.
Yep.
And she's
Pancakes,
blushing.
Man. That's what
I
I
like
like
it.
to eat.
Pancake.
As
You
a
are
matter
a
of-
pancake person.
I
It's
do
like the
love
only food I have ever heard you talk about.
Really?
I've never heard you
That's
say anything about anything
surprising
else.
because I told my kids if you do not remember anything about me, please remember that I make waffles really well.
Wow.
I want to be remembered for my waffles.
We
I bet you
should
do
have
make-
some waffles.
Yeah.
Yeah, why didn't you have some ready for us, man? That
Oh,
would've
next
slapped.
time. I'm trying to be good. We're going on a cruise soon. So I'm like, either buy a bunch of cover-ups or go easy on the pancakes, you know?
Yeah, I'm like either just stay in my rash guard or completely change my life from sun up to sundown. Just become an entirely different person. Start working as hard as I can in every single way.
Yep. Yep.
So looks like it's rash guards for me.
That's funny.
I love a good cover up.
I
Yeah.
know, right?
Yeah.
And they're actually really popular this year.
There you go.
So
It's a good year to go on a cruise
like the mesh
and eat pancakes.
Now I just need a big floppy hat so no one can see my face, and we're good.
Why are you hiding?
I don't know.
Not that I want you to not hide. That's a weird question coming from a man. It's just when you said the hat thing, I was thinking you're hiding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be a woman.
Yeah.
I have
I don't know.
no idea.
Well, I would prefer to talk about being an artist.
Okay. Let's talk about it
And we
then.
still hate that.
What were one of your questions?
Okay. So for context, first of all, thank you for that very kind introduction.
It's okay.
Very, very, very kind. I'll be thinking about it tonight when I'm trying to fall asleep.
Journal it.
Journal it. See, there's this narrative of me that I'm some avid writer in my journal, but what really happens is that I will get, the other day, 16 days behind. And I had to go through text, and I was just like grunting. And at
Because
my
you
office,
try
I
to
was
do
like,
it every day.
yeah, I've done it every day since like October of 2012.
Wow.
And I've missed maybe like 10 days.
Wow.
But
That's insane.
But I go and literally the other day I was like, I can't remember anything that happened. I'm just writing this so it's not blank. I did that.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
fair.
It's cheating. So that's what
No.
they're like.
I remember you saying this last time, that
Oh.
sometimes you're like, oh, today this, and this happened. The end.
Yep, that's it.
Cheating would be telling myself that I'm going to do it every year, and by January 10th, I don't anymore.
Well, at
For the
least you're going to
last
have a
12
solid
years
memory
as
of
well.
the beginning of every year.
Yeah.
Well,
Cheating
okay,
myself.
so when I knew I was coming on the podcast, I was thinking, what sort of direction could we give the conversation? And then I realized it was just going to be the three of us. So the three of us are artists. I'm going to go ahead and say it, even though I'm still like a little blushing when I say that. But that's the reason I wanted to talk about it, is that all three of us have a little bit of a hard time talking about that. Every time I talk to either of you, excuse me, every time I talk to either of you about your art, your brain totally I just see your soul go into the other room. Your eyes drift off. You're like, let's talk about something else.
Yeah.
And I kind of like it. I mean, it's like when I was in high school, I had this test that I would do with people. And when I would hear that they played an instrument, like guitar,
Sure.
I would say, are you good? And if they're like, yeah, I knew immediately they weren't. It
hate
was like a
that guy.
fail-proof test.
Yeah.
I've gotten less intense about that over time, but when I was in high school, I was like, this is the test. I can separate the
Sure.
musicians in my
Yeah.
mind, who really get it and who don't.
That's like repulsing to me for somebody to be like, are you good? And say, yeah. Like, ugh.
And
I would
quickly-
never even want to be friends with that person.
Right. It's
The
like, how do you
same
even
with
define
art.
good? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I assume it's the same with art. But anyway, so I think that makes a good common starting ground for us. It's hilarious too, because like, well, I didn't even say any of this, and you just go, so what's your first question about art? About art. So I'm leaning into it because I think it's uncomfortable for all of us.
Yeah.
But I was wanting to ask questions that I think other people might be interested in knowing. So if y'all are down, we can do
Let's
it.
do it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to just pull my list up, and we're going to start going through
We've never
these.
had a
See, I mean, now that's next level.
Okay, so in general, what draws you to create? Why do you do it?
Ooh, go first.
Well, unfortunately, honestly, these are going to be good reflective questions, I can already tell. Because currently in my lifescape, most of the time, I create because I am getting paid to do so. And therefore, it's not as fun. I am thankful to have that in my life, to be hired to create occasionally, but it's definitely different. Like, for example, walking in here and you're in here painting because you're good at it, and it I mean, that's like a completely different level of what I would aspire to make the time for.
Mm-hmm.
But
So when was the last time you made the time to do it for you, apart from a doodle on a page?
Oh, boy. Well, I guess last year when we did that art show here
Yeah.
was the last time.
Did you create all new pieces for that? You did?
Mhm. Yeah, and
You
it
did so
was good
good.
because I needed that deadline of like,
Yeah.
here's this show, and
Yeah.
you know what you want it to feel like for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
so you've got to figure out that time. So,
Yeah.
but I haven't done it since then.
We'll get on it.
I know, right? What
Yeah.
would you say? Why do you create?
Well, I was thinking about it while you were talking, and I think that I do it just because it's pretty much the only thing I have utter control over. Like
Wow.
I think that's why I like to build furniture quite a bit. It's because I know what it's going to look like in the end. I think I've always struggled with how much I hate my art because I get very inspired by photography. And so I see photography and I'm like, oh, I want to paint
It
that.
has to look like this.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So I'm painting it the whole time, and I'm not a hyper-realist painter. But when I get done, it's like I've been staring at this photograph that I want it to look like, and it doesn't look like that whatsoever. And so I just freaking hate myself, put it away, and then I forget about it.
Sure.
Well, prior to having this space, I would put it in the attic and obviously forget what the photograph looked like. Well, then I pop out the art and I'm like, oh, that's not
Your
that
point of
bad,
reference is
you know?
Interesting.
But yeah,
Because I was going to say, don't you think that difference between the painting and the photograph is the whole point?
I mean, yeah, I see hyper realist painters and I'm thinking, yeah, why? First of all, that's freaking incredible.
Insane, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it is ridiculous, the pores that you can see on somebody. Like,
Yeah.
it's insane. If I did ever get to be that good, which no, it's not going to happen. I'm not that patient. That I would be like, okay, now I can go back to my normal way of painting. You know, like it would just be something
It's kind of like how you
Interesting.
hear like really talented historical, they could paint like that, but then chose to do like splatter painting or
yes.
abstract art or
Yeah.
more of the expression of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Why do you create,
Yeah.
Nate?
Are we talking about
Interesting.
paintings or are we talking about videography?
Well, so the way I see myself is, I think that if somebody was like, oh, so you're an artist, what is your medium?
Sure.
I would have to say, first of all, is music. That's where I'm most purely, I guess, by the definition of artist. I don't even really know what artist is, but that's where I'm most purely artist. But I also have been drawn to the artistic side of photography since I was a teenager. Similar timelines. That came a little bit later. And then video stuff too, which is always, I don't know. I'm not, I bristle when you say filmmaker because I've never made a film.
do you want to?
Well,
Let's do it.
The problem is
I don't want to.
One time I called Blake a videographer in
Right.
front of some people and he corrected me.
That's a
I don't
perfect
do weddings.
distinction. That is a perfect distinction between the two of us because I am totally okay with a videographer
Okay.
title.
That helps.
And I'm like, I'll do a
I mean,
painting.
no insult.
No, the stuff that I love cinematic stuff and love emotional stuff. I just almost never do it. And if I do it, I would rather it be less planned and more, I just have a really cool vibe going here and I'm just capturing friends and doing whatever and pulling the emotion out. I do love that. So in that sense, I have made those films and I loved making those films. I also love being very in the playful side of like stop motion and bright colors and cool stuff like food photography. I'm like, I love that stuff,
Yeah.
But so I'm not going to talk about paintings when I create. When I'm talking about creating, I'm going to be 99% talking about music
Okay.
in this conversation, I think.
So you play guitar? Mm-hmm. Are you good?
I play guitar and bass, but I just love music. And why do I create? I mean, I think I create because I just can't not.
Yeah.
Which may sound like pretentious, but I just am.
I get that.
even since I was a little kid, and I talked about this last time, but I just have always been really in tune with the way things feel and look and sound.
Sure.
And I had a deep emotional connection to music when I was a little bitty kid. So I create because I feel like I can't not, like it's just, I feel really restless if I'm not doing something. I have a very active mind. Megan is always like, your mind.
Yeah.
Like, oh Lord, I need a break,
Can I speak to that
Yeah,
real
yeah.
fast? I was trying to explain the other day that I genuinely feel like a little bit of a failure all the time, constantly, every day, because I'll think of so many random projects or things I should do or themes or concepts even, and I ain't never gonna do all that.
Yep.
Like, it's like physically impossible for me to do all of the things that I think I should do, and therefore they are immediately like, well, that's for someone else someday. And so
Yeah.
just like constantly.
Maybe the perspective is just to try to accept and enjoy that part of you, though, because a metaphor popped into my mind while you were talking. When you endeavor to do a project like an art show or a music show or something like that, you have like a purpose. So you're trying to like make a fire, right? Like a fire that can warm you, a fire you can cook food on, whatever. Like there's a purpose for it. But sometimes like the creative brain is just like shooting fireworks, right? So it like goes up into the air, pops, burns, never does anything. And you're like, well, what's the point of that? And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I was there to witness it, saw it for a second. That was cool.
That
Maybe
just
that
came to your
metaphor holds
mind?
up.
That
Yeah.
just popped in your head.
But maybe that holds up. But maybe that's why we
Just
do
changed
it.
my
And maybe that's why I like, because I've also spun it out like with, oh, I could do this, I could do that. Or even when you're actually doing the proper like art itself, you'll do a sketch or an idea that you're like, you go and I've spent hours on some that I just like, I go back and listen. I'm like, this is dumb, but I'm I'm trying to be gracious of the fact that I have to let that out so that I can move on.
The process of it. I do think because of time, if I ever have the time to just create something, there's a huge amount of pressure on that time. And so if whatever I do
It sounds like you
sucks-
need to quit your job and just come up here and play with me all the time.
That sounds delightful.
Put a hammock in the
Sell
corner.
your house. Let's trade it for a tiny
I
house.
can just live here, right?
Yeah, I mean totally.
You said what?
That'd be amazing.
That's perfect.
That's one of yours right over there, isn't it? In the corner?
Yep, it is. I love her.
Lovely.
See, what's that like
I know, right?
to love some of your art? I do love Super Sad
Oh, yeah,
in the
she's
front.
great.
She's the very happy woman in a bikini.
Hey, girl.
Oh, and you called it super sad.
Yeah.
Because she's actually super sad?
No.
Or because
well,
it's the
yes,
opposite?
but I was listening to Suki Waterhouse, and her song "Super Sad" was on repeat a lot. And which, by the way, I need you both to know. Guess what we're doing this weekend? We are taking me to Suki Waterhouse and Willem to Benson Boone.
Come on.
The double header?
The doubleheader.
That's
So,
fantastic.
they're actually at the same place.
Oh,
Well,
that's
that's
It's a
fun.
Sips and Sounds in Austin.
That's so fun.
That is so fun.
Yes, so y'all need to know that I went through with my
I know. I was just thinking
Yes.
that.
Goals.
yes.
I was
so
there when that was born.
at your house. He was like, "Hey,
Oh,
if
yeah.
she sings this song, will you take her to a Benson Moon concert?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah." And then freaking Meredith pulls up $300 concert tickets, and I'm like,
Give
"Hold
me a
on."
second.
I brokered that deal.
Well, it's happening this weekend, so
Well, good for y'all. I bet she's going to love
To
it.
Benson Boone.
To Benson Boone. All right, next question. Do you think people are born creative or that anyone can develop it?
Oh, I 100% think everyone's born creative.
So everyone. So why are some known as creative and others seem like, man, I don't have a creative bone in my body? Like people
Yep.
seem to feel that way.
I think it's born creative and then nurtured one way or another.
yeah.
Nature versus nurture or whatever. That's probably outside of my wheelhouse to speak on. But I do believe it's like that simple concept of at some point in your life, someone said, you can't do that. That looks dumb. And you either say, F you, I'm going to do this out of it. Or you say, you know what, you're right. I'm never going to do that again. I'm going to get real good at math instead.
What do you think?
I think everybody is born creative. the priorities are different. So, which is great. Like, can you imagine a world full of artists?
Sure.
Like, that would be a chaotic mess.
Sure.
So, I think that some people choose to actually pursue it and practice and do it, and others don't. And that's, I mean, I follow so many people on Instagram, so many artists on Instagram, and it is insane. If my favorite thing to do is go to their first post.
Sure.
And to see what their art looked like in the very beginning.
Sure.
And to see what it is now is insane sometimes. So
That's why it's important to keep the stuff up that you're not proud of.
yeah.
Huh?
That's cool.
What about you?
I tend to think that everybody can experience creativity the same way that anybody can be on a Pee Wee soccer team. But I don't think that everyone is born with an equal amount of the creative instinct. In the same way that I don't think everyone's born with athleticism.
Yeah.
Like,
So some people have to work at it more.
totally.
I can see that.
I see it the same thing as athleticism. Some people, it comes very easy to them.
Sure.
You give them a ball when they're 3 years old and they can hit a target at like 20 feet away.
Sure.
Yeah.
Other people have to throw that 10,000 times and then they'll hit it every
That's
every
smart.
5 throws maybe. So I kind of think it's definitely nurture is a big part of
Yeah.
it. What you focus on, what you prioritize, environment you're in, what you think is possible. That's huge.
Like, when you ask that question, my mind immediately goes to like 5th grade art contests at
That's funny.
elementary
Sure.
and winning, like, I don't know if it was first or second
Humble
or
brag.
what. But no, I mean, but
Sure.
I can picture what that looked like. It was like a shed in my grandma's backyard, and it sucked.
I love this
It sucked so
much.
bad. And the fact that somebody called that good
Sure.
was like, oh,
Oh, all right.
ah.
I can do this thing.
And that's why I kind of just kept going. But
The other thing that's really interesting about it is, based off what you're saying, with sports, to continue the example, pretty much anybody can say that that's good or bad because it's about numbers. It's about like, did you win? Did you actually do what
Yeah.
you said you're going to do? But there's a whole world of people that don't even know whether any kind of art, be it a movie, a song, a painting, is good or bad. They don't even know how to differentiate. So I feel like the mere fact that you said, I remember it and it sucked,
yeah.
it's like there's something inside of you
says,
that can
yeah.
differentiate. And I'm not sure that everyone is born with that, which, again, that probably sounds pretentious. Ugh, I need to pull it
No,
back. But
I get that for sure. Because even, like, the question being, is everyone born creative? I think that could be creative problem solving or creative dog grooming. I don't know.
Have you
Like,
seen
it
that
could be-
statistic where they, like, people in NASA, they have people take tests that are based off creativity. They want creative thinkers. They don't want people who,
by the book?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
which if you're stuck in space,
You got to
want-
get creative. Yeah.
man, that's a really good distinction, Alicia, because I think you can have an artistic skill and not be creative in it. Like
Sure.
the ability to do a new iteration of something or
Sure.
approach it from a different perspective. So, I mean, mathematicians, and scientists,
Sure.
creativity is what pushes those forward. So that's really good.
Yeah.
Then, yes, I think everybody's born creative if that's how we're defining it. And maybe I was trying to say, is everyone born artistically inclined?
Sure. But
yeah.
see, that's totally subjective in the sense of duct taping a banana to a wall
Yep.
versus, it's just like, man, it's just a whirlwind of subjective opinion. But
I want to know what your 24th question is.
You're like, so bored with these?
skip it.
No, we can go back. I'm
My
just
24th, I'll just read it to you.
Oh, I
It's-
love it.
Which, by the way, I had help with ChatGPT. I did
Talk
put in
about
parameters.
creative.
I put in yeah, exactly right.
You can put in parameters.
Oh, you can give it as much context as you want. So I said, I'm about to do a podcast. It's all 3 artists. What if we do this? And I was like, how about we do this instead? And then I went through and edited them and took out ones I didn't like and put my own in there. So it's kind of a mix.
Yes.
I used it as a
love
tool.
I love
I
it.
use it sometimes to create a photograph. Did you know it does
To
that?
paint- yeah.
This is very
crazy.
creative of both of you.
Yeah, but Linux thinks it's a fail. So go
A
ahead.
fail.
Yeah, he's like, do not use chat to do your art. And I'm like, Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So sorry, sir.
Yes, boss.
Yes.
The 24th question is, what's the most intense creative flow state you've ever experienced?
Ooh.
That's a fun question.
You want to answer or pass? We could do that because there's no way we're going to have time to get to all
The
these
most
anyway.
intense creative flow state. Man.
I'll ask a sub question to that.
Okay.
You can edit these questions as...
Were you under the influence of anything when it comes to
I have never tried that.
What?
I know. I need to try that.
You're just natural consciousness comes up with this stuff?
Yeah.
It's unacceptable.
I think I'm just too paranoid. And
Oh,
whenever
sure.
I am under the influence, even drinking, I can't. I don't have control over it.
Sure.
There it is. That's why
Control.
I need the
We go
control
back to
over
it.
the creation.
Yeah, because I remember hearing Stephen King, there's novels that have won
Yes.
prizes that he doesn't even remember writing
Good
because he was
gosh,
so high
come
on
on.
cocaine.
That's nuts.
Did you
I
hear
don't
that
know
on
how-
Smartless?
I have no idea. Picked
We
it up
often
from somewhere.
tell people on our podcast to go listen to other podcasts.
We need to start getting some sponsorships. Affiliate podcast.
Smartless is great.
So either of you want to answer that? The most intense creative flow state you've ever
I
experienced?
think my most intense was probably this last art show, because Plemons Bridge, they reached out to me months ago, and they were like, "Hey, can we do a show at Stoics?" And I listened to their music, and it's freaking phenomenal. I freaking love them so much. And so I was like, screw that. I'm going to do a whole freaking show around it. And so they said that they wanted to do the show in I don't know, I think it was November-ish. And so I was like, okay, January 31st, that's my deadline. But everybody's already seen this art. So I've got to have all new art. So I whipped out.
And you did not stop.
I did not
That's
stop.
awesome.
So did
It's so good. I love
all new art, and that was probably my most intense because I just had a deadline.
Sure.
But
Deadlines.
I was completely sober. So what about you?
Fascinating. I'm probably more like old Steven, and I don't remember.
Yeah.
Miss King.
I definitely think it's for me, to an unfortunate degree, it's right in between being too drunk. I have to drink a little bit in a weird loosen up the limbs kind of a way. I don't know. And then again, the inhibition of critiquing myself while it's happening. If I'm tipsy enough, I ain't worried about that. I'm just making it. But yeah, I'm not worried about time. I'm not worried about it being good or bad.
Are you
Interesting.
alone?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So you're an alcoholic.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for another podcast.
Next episode.
Just kidding. So many people are sober curious right now.
Oh, I think I might be.
Yeah.
You're sober curious?
I don't even know what that means.
That means you don't drink right now.
Oh yeah, no, I'm
Means you're-
literally drinking right now.
I think sober curious means you're contemplating going sober.
Yeah.
And it's not because it's a problem in your life, but because you're wondering what your full life would be like if it wasn't an
Oh,
option.
I am
Yeah.
actually 100% that.
So you're sober
Maybe
curious.
97% because I am drinking right now.
I think so. Creative flow state is interesting. The times I feel flow state the most is when I have a huge list of things to do for work, and I'm just one thing into the next, into the next, into the next. That is when I feel so alive. I don't know that I feel that very much with the creative thing, because for me, it's just I show up, I try to get an idea. If the idea is working, then it's working, and then usually it's either the whole musical idea falls out, like a whole song, or it's just I get stuck on something and it doesn't work. But flow state usually ends. I'm never going to do a song and then do another one, at least. Maybe I just don't have the window.
Sure.
I might, but I almost need space between those times. So I don't know if I experience creative. Maybe I experience creative flow state. I don't know. It's a hard question. Why'd you write that question? Well, so let's pick another question. How does that sound?
Yep.
Unless you have more to say about that.
Nope.
Nope.
Excuse me. Sorry for all of that.
No, you're good.
And now sorry for the
We
yell that
actually
you're gonna have
don't
to
care on this podcast
Oh.
about
Bodily sounds.
road noise. Yeah, on the thing.
do. Well, I've got a lot going on for some reason today. Let's see. Okay. Do you feel more like yourself when you're creating or when you're just living your day-to-day life?
Man, I do not like to feel like myself. So,
Hot take.
like, I thought about getting to hang out with y'all in a bit for this podcast, and I was like, hanging out with you people make me truly understand that something is wrong with me.
Elaborate.
You're welcome.
Y'all just seem like great people.
I just told you I'm an alcoholic.
No, I've seen an alcoholic. That is not it.
Okay.
It's true.
But yeah, like I just, if I'm not doing something creative, I'm very in my mind. I'm constantly talking, including in my sleep. Like I'm talking to myself. I'm not vocalizing it. I am in my
your
head
head.
all day long. And it's usually very mean to, yeah, like I'm.
To just yourself or to anyone?
I think it's usually mean to myself, but more so like this unspoken competition between me and the rest of the world.
Yeah. She's a strong Enneagram 4. That's what I want to think. I kind of think we all are, but I think you may be the strongest.
You win.
Yeah.
See, you win. That's good.
But what if I wanted to lose?
Don't tell her that it's good.
Don't tell me what I can and can't do.
Yeah.
So then you feel yourself when you're not in your head.
I would like, yeah, like
you-
I feel calm when I am creating something. I know what I'm wanting to do. I'm thinking about that. But if I'm not and I'm just I have a lot of alone time because Jordan goes to work 24 hours and the kids go to school. And so I'm very in my head. And unless the TV's going, I am constantly chatting myself up.
I was going to say,
Or down.
I could see
down,
how
yeah.
that's why you love listening to music and things like that.
Interesting.
That's it. That is interesting.
I don't do super well with boredom.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time picking a direction sometimes.
Yeah. What do you do?
I don't know. I really don't. I mean, we're also in that place where I feel like it's important for me to be present, not just in the house with my child, but like present with them. And
Yeah.
it's tough to always know, like to always find a flow state with that. And I also think it's completely fine for us to be doing our own things alongside each other.
Sure.
I think there's a quiet peace and safety in that is beautiful, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But
Yeah.
I can't exactly, like if it's a Sunday afternoon and I don't know what to do, I'm not the type to just be like, all right, I'm leaving the house, see y'all later, because I feel like it's my responsibility to show up as a parent, as a partner of partner parent. So I don't know, but I mean, I'll reach for music or I'll reach for something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that even relates to what you were saying, but
This is going to go way too deep. I strangely don't think I've ever been myself. I've spent some time thinking about like who I was as a little kid, because you read stuff about how like if you can tap into the things you were passionate about or drawn to and things like that. So I will say like creative things, problem solving, like being there for people, like those types of characteristics definitely speak to my soul. But as far as like, I think even as a child, I was always trying to be something that I thought I was supposed to be rather than just being myself.
Yeah.
So
Right.
so then how does that translate into the things that you make? Do you feel like you need to make something that is supposed to be a certain way? Or do you feel like, okay, I don't even know if this question is on the list, but what is your measure of what you're making is exciting to you? Or like you have the buzz of like, okay, this is cool. I'm feeling this. Like, what's your measure of that?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I just start something so that I can finish it.
See,
So
That's
what emotions do
fascinating.
you feel while you're painting?
I really don't.
And that's the whole point,
Yeah,
maybe?
that's probably the whole point. That one was the most emotion I've ever felt, and it was because somebody I knew was passing away at that time, and I knew they were passing away. So it was just a week long of worship music, tears, and like
getting it out.
Yeah.
But that's literally the only one I've ever had any sort of emotional connection to. Once they're done, yeah, they make me feel a certain way.
That's
but
so interesting.
during the process, it's like, I'm going to put this line here. And that's...
Do you see it as even being therapeutic in the sense that it is emotionless?
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I think it's accurate to say that it is still an emotional outlet for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just inverted from what comes to mind when people say that. So and what I'm piecing together from everything you're saying is when you're in the act of doing that, you are not talking down or up to yourself.
Yeah.
You're not really talking at all. You're not really feeling much.
Yeah.
And maybe
Yeah.
that's what flow state
Quiet
is. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But I love it's fascinating. What about you? Do you feel emotion when you're making? And don't think about. I want you to think about
Sure.
when you're making things at the purest state, not when you're meeting a deadline or when you're like stressed about it.
You know what's interesting is if I think about it more, it's similar to what you're saying. I wouldn't have thought that. Like when you first said that, anyway, it's the more I think about it, when it is at its most therapeutic and simplest form, I am only concentrating on the tool that I'm using and the effect that it's making. I'm not necessarily picking this color because it means rage, or picking this texture to show love, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do think that, again, with the time restraints, that's what makes it hard to just do it for therapeutic purposes, because that seems frivolous for some reason, even though it's like super important to my soul. But just to get it out,
Yeah.
it like gets stuff out that I didn't know was in there.
Interesting. Man.
What about
okay.
you?
I'm about to talk about myself, y'all.
Let's go.
Because I'm seeing some interesting distinctions. So there's a lot of technique involved in painting. I mean, I can't do it well. I can sketch things here and there, but you were talking about that. You're thinking in the simplest form, it's about the tool you're using, the technique, the way it's hitting the paper. And music is, for me, not at all a technique thing. If it is, it's like the way the technique is making me feel primary.
It is emotional.
So basically, when I'm writing a musical idea, I struggle to call them songs because I only write like instrumental stuff, but I'm just going to call them songs for short. When I'm writing a song, it's really just an act of hunting for an emotion. That's all I'm ever doing. And if I don't ever feel anything, I'm like, this is garbage, I'm not interested. But when I find something, it'll be like the slightest little change of a chord, and I'm like, oh, there's something there.
There
And
it
I always do
is.
that when I'm by myself. I'm always like, oh, like that's my thing. And then I get excited, and then I'm going. But it's so interesting because I'm not, most of the, well, this is still the case. Like I have a basic understanding of music theory and can communicate with other musicians and stuff. I can't read music, but I know the relationship of chords and what they do, kind of. But I never take a methodical approach, and I never think, well, now I need to do A, B, and C. If I try to do that, it
Formulaic,
usually doesn't.
kinda?
Yeah, formulaic doesn't really work. Even though with every chord, there's only a certain amount of options you can go to next that are going to sound good or not just kill your emotions. To me. So anyway, I'm just processing how it's so different.
Different venues.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are focused on technique. You're not really thinking. Neither of you are really thinking or feeling. And I feel like both of you are two deeply feeling people. Two of the most deeply feeling people I know.
Ask too, is like, am I so overstimulated by my emotions all the day long that the therapy version of that is not emotion?
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say like boy versus girl, because that can be different. But like,
Could be.
for you, searching for that emotion to draw it out is a very different approach. It's interesting.
And what am I? And I don't know that I'm searching for my emotion. I'm searching for the music to pull an emotion to like, because music is so sensitive to me. The difference between something that's emotional and not can be like the tone of the instruments or the volume of the instruments.
But I also don't think, like, when people say artist, I don't immediately go to musician. I feel like that should be... Yeah. I do feel like music is my most favorite form of art. Like, that's what I want every day, all day. I want music. I find it so incredibly important. As far as, like, art on the walls, it's like, they're so different to me. And so I think it's a completely different talent all in itself. But when Willem sings and writes songs, it's insane the amount of depth that she's using in her words that are not her everyday language. It's a spiritual thing for sure. I've never been a musician, so I can't speak to that of how they are similar, but I just do feel like, like the fine arts and all that is so separate than music to me.
Does it bother you when somebody like me says art and they're talking about music?
No, I find it as a compliment to the highest extent. It sucks that they can't be more profitable and like more acknowledged for their talent. Like this last show we had a guy come out and play some music, and my point for these shows, you are here to see the music. It's not about you having a place to mingle with your friends. We're here so that the artist, the musician, can show us their new craft, and that's why we're here. So it was very frustrating not having signs posted everywhere saying, hey,
shut up and
quiet.
Sit down.
Yeah, like that we're here for them. I don't know. I truly value music so much. I think it's so important, and I do feel like it's very underappreciated as far as like people just don't think about how gifted they are to get to hear it every waking moment or be in the midst of live music or a musician. Like it's just it's incredible talent.
Do you think it's because most people don't want to feel emotion? Like I was thinking the same about art in general. I feel like it's somewhat difficult for some people to get it or even want to try to get it.
Yeah.
And the same with music. Like I know there's lots of people that listen to music just to have sound. Whereas like Blake and I, for example, he's like, listen to this. And it is really good. But I'm the one that's like, oh my gosh, did you hear what they just said? He's like, I didn't know there was words. Like, it's just completely like, it's like I don't know. If you're searching for the art and things, you will find it. Because it is very much so in music.
Yeah.
But the things that go popular most times aren't very deep necessarily.
Music plays a different role for different people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So hearing you talk about music, I've never sensed anything but appreciation for music in you. However, I would not put you in the folder of people that are actively interested in music.
Sure.
Because I don't know that I've ever heard a song that you put on. I don't know that you've ever said, listen to this.
Sure. The irony is I've always known that I need to surround myself with musically inclined people because and the same goes with honestly anything to ingest. Like I don't think to like just pick up a book and read it. Like I need someone that I trust around me to say, this is good, listen to it, and then I can decide. But for example, the radio in my car didn't work for like 2 years. So I would just drive around it quiet. And now I still do that. And Blake's like, I don't understand. Like, I just don't understand how you do that.
You know, that's fascinating because 99% of my drives are quiet.
Really?
Just nothing.
See, What is that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what it is for me. I feel music so vividly that even if I have an album that I absolutely love, I want to save it because I will overplay it and then it'll get on my mind like a parasite and I can't think of anything else and then I will burn out on it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of person that burns out on music and some people aren't. Like my good friend Meredith, she's like, you could play me a song from 2002 that if I loved it then, I will love it the exact same now even if I've heard it 500 times.
That's crazy.
But I would rather not put on like, and then there's time like searching, well, what's right now? What do I have to, and it's like, I would rather just not.
So much.
Yeah.
Maybe there is that degree of like, I tend to feel real hard on things. And so if I'm not prepared to expend that type of emotion, then I'm probably not going to listen to anything.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep. I listen to music a lot in the car, but there are a few times that I'll intentionally turn it off. But it's like I know the specific amount of times I can hear this song. So I'll make myself playlists of all these songs that I love, and then it's like it's on rotation. So I can't play it over and over and over and over and over.
A mixed bag.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, here's something I want to hear from you guys. Having both recently had art shows, is it hard to share something personal with the public? And if so, like what is the hardest part of that for you?
You go.
And this is going to be interesting knowing that you don't feel any emotion when you're making your stuff.
Yeah, I'm very disconnected from everything that I've made. Like, I think that almost helps me during the art shows because people continuously come up to me and they're like, this is amazing, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm thinking the party. The party is amazing.
It is. I'm having so much fun.
I know. And they're thinking like the art or whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. Like I feel very disconnected from it. But I don't know. What was the question again?
Like, is it hard? Is it hard to share your work in public? And do you feel anything? Like, let's say you reveal a painting for the first time, and there were 20 people standing here, and you pulled the tarp off, which never happens. But if you did that, what would you be feeling? Would it be hard? What would be the hardest part?
I think, honestly, I hide from that because I do think that a lot of my stuff is different, and so you could look at that piece and think that she didn't do that. Oh, I wonder if she did that, and so it's like. I think I keep my styles different on purpose so that it kind of seems like there are multiple artists being shown. And so the only way that you would know it was mine is if you read on it, which a lot of the times I forget to label everything. So
you avoid it.
I avoid it, yeah, for sure.
My sense in coming to your art show is just what you said. You're like, now this stuff's on the walls, but I'm really focused on the party and I'm hosting and also...
Yes.
I'm not even emotionally attached at all to what people are perceiving about it.
Yes. Yeah.
Huh.
Like, I don't want to know what you think about it.
Well, and it's funny how often you just do something to do it, and then someone else is like, oh my gosh, this feels like my childhood favorite popsicle flavor. Or, whatever. You're like, okay, art.
Yeah.
Art's cool, man. What were you feeling when you did this, or why?
Yeah,
right.
I hate those questions.
Yeah.
I hate them
Right.
so
I'm
much.
always just like, how does it make you feel?
Yeah.
That's a great question too, because people ask me that with music a lot, and most of the time it's like I wasn't. I just found an idea that was like, oh, that's a vibe. Like a lot of the ideas I really like, I could describe as like a dude with his sunglasses and a convertible. Like that's the emotion. What emotion is that?
Yeah.
Cool, Mr.
feel
Cool
it.
Guy.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm not like weeping over them. But then a lot of times after the fact, the way I've started answering that is like if I listen back to something, I'll think, okay, so what emotions does, like now that I've stepped away from it, listening back, what emotions does hearing that conjure in me? Because I don't have emotions when I'm writing it. I'm just following what's working. And so then after the fact, I can attach emotions. And like, that's how sometimes I'll try to name songs. I'm like, that's what it makes me think of or what it makes me feel.
Yeah.
Like I have one called Only One that has never been released. And I don't know if we're ever going to release it, but I've realized it captured the intense bittersweetness of having and knowing we're only going to have one child. And I was like, whoa, if I could write a song to him that was like both a wrapped up like version of my heart and a quiet apology. at the same
Interesting.
time. Like that's what it would sound
Oh,
like.
why can't we? We can hear it though, right?
Yeah, I'll play it for you guys later.
Oh my God, it's the best day ever.
Okay, but so I want to get more into this. So that's what she said. But what do you feel? So I'm right now in front of me are two of my favorites that I've ever seen from both of you.
Yes.
And like as I'm looking at those and appreciating those, I already know, Alexis, you're like, I don't care. What's the next question? But what do you feel when I look at it and appreciate it? Do you feel on the spot? Do you feel kind of embarrassed? Do you feel shy?
Well, as an overarching theme of my life, I love validation. So
same,
I'll
sister.
take that all day.
Same.
To be seen is nice to any degree, as long as it's kind. But it is interesting. I was trying to think of how I would answer that, and it's like just throughout life, I think I've had the I care what you think like beat out of me over time.
Mm-hmm.
So to get to the point where, okay, I don't care if people like this, I don't care if people understand it, I don't care if it even makes money, which is extra tough to purpose the time for something like that. That's a really sweet spot to be, which is ironically, I don't know if it's a healthy spot to be. Like, I don't know if that's just like self-preservation in a way of like, I don't care what you think, when obviously I probably do, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Like the point of doing it, because I'll say this, to do stuff that I'm either getting paid to do or someone told me you should do those windmill watercolor things, they'll make money. Like
You should
nothing
paint my dog.
yeah, nothing will suck the life from my soul quicker than something like that. Even though I feel capable of doing something like that, I don't want to do that. And I will say, I think people feel that. Like, I've done that before and I haven't sold things. And then there's times where I've done things because it was therapeutic and because it was in the flow state, such as that's hanging there. And it just feels different when you look at it. Even though you can't articulate why. Kind of like the music. Like, you could make something just to make it, but then to make something that is flowing right, and it's almost like one brushstroke demands the next one.
Yeah.
Similar to, I feel like, creating a song.
Yeah, my paintings are all like one long strip. The canvas is like 1 inch tall and 5 feet wide, and I can only paint from left to right.
Sure,
You know?
you can only go forward.
Yeah, I mean, I might be able to write something like that. Sounds like a good B section. Now I
Sure.
need to go in and write the A, but I can't. There has to be a chain to like step forward.
Also, we should totally do a series that is just what you said. 1 inch tall, 5 feet long. Musically inspired. I feel so inspired right now.
Well, now I'm going to answer my own question because I loved also hearing myself talk, and I also love
It's
validation.
so fun, yes.
It's too
Please
fun.
go. I
Yeah,
would love to
me
hear
starting a podcast would be a really bad idea.
Well, look, you just did it.
There we go. I'm on one.
A new art form.
I know for me, I 1,000% do not make the music I'm making for anybody but me. And, you know, asterisk. Of course, like all art is made so that other people can see it to a degree. I don't know. I don't know exactly how I feel about that.
Sure.
I mean, when you're making music, you want people to listen to it and like almost see art. I don't even know what art is, but I think almost see it like a vehicle that takes some emotion that you made with your viewpoint that you're trying to like put into somebody else. But like if I wrote a song that I was super excited about and somebody listened to it and they're like, I can't stand it. It would not offend a single atom of my soul. It'd be as simple as like, oh, it's just not for you. I love it, and I'm going to show the next
It's
person
my
now
baby.
because exactly
Yeah.
like it's my baby that I'm not sensitive or defensive about at all. It's like my baby. If my baby was a full-grown
That
grizzly
sounds
bear.
like true love.
So,
It
like,
is
to
true
know
love.
that something is good and or successful, it's not because it sold. It's because you love it.
100%.
Yeah. I think it's taken me, how old am I? That many years to
28.
Yeah. It's taken me that long to like be good with that. Like the art show we just had, still haven't sold anything. Sorry, commission. But I
float that commission.
But
check.
I still deeply love what I produced, and therefore, meh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But my art show, some girl came up to me and she's like, hey, I want to buy this one. And it just happened to be my favorite one. And so I conveniently, I was like, oh, okay. And walked away and started mingling. And then she came up to me again and she's like, hey, yeah, so I really want to buy that one. And where do I buy it? And I'm like, okay, hold on. And I go mingle some more. Well, then she comes up to me a third time with her phone in hand. How do I pay you? And I said, okay, here's the thing. I'm having a really hard time selling that one. She goes, are you kidding me?
She's offended.
I'm sorry. Did you just have an art show?
I go, can I please text you in the morning if I'm okay with selling it? Because I don't know if I can. And so she left, and all my friends are like, hey, you could get a print made for yourself. Like, sell the original. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's what I did. But now, if my print sells, which it did actually, my print of the one that I made has sold, and I don't care now.
Interesting.
It's weird. It's like I needed a little time to like let her go and let her fly, and now I'm like, okay, fly,
So-
little
Now
birdie.
she's ready.
So musically, like, I mean, I would say you've had some success. Like, you've been able to travel a bit and play some shows and sell some things. Like, does that change what you make at all?
Well, thanks for saying that. I mean, what is success in music? I mean, and also like
Art, man.
I care. I both care in some ways and don't care in other ways.
Yeah.
I care because it is validating. I don't care because, with any music, you can boast about what you've done, and only a very small group of people are going to know who you are or why to care. Like, I opened for this band, and they're like, who even is that? And it's like, why do you? There's no like ground to boast, to stand on to boast. I will say that. So the cool thing that happened was we got to open for a band in New York. It still doesn't make sense to me that this even happened, but it happened. Thanks to Will Krause. But the only feeling I had coming back was like, man, I need to really take my writing very seriously now, because it was a weird feeling being in my office alone, practicing these songs before we went, and just feeling like these are not good enough for this stage at all. Like, this is like, now I was seeing what I had made through a new light, and I was seeing the ways that even I cut corners, where it's like, okay, I spent 20 minutes writing this when I could have really thought, like, how do I orchestrate this? Like, what turn should it take next, So it just made me say, I want to write more seriously. And I'm just trying to keep that childlike. And I do think there's been a good effect. I mean, we got back from New York, and then I probably had like 14 ideas in a period of like 2 weeks.
Inspired
Kernels of ideas or full ideas.
Yeah.
And I think some of them are the best things that we've come up with in this project. And I have no idea when the world's going to be able to hear them, but I'm excited about them. And I also think there's like a cohesive sound emerging across all of them that feels like they could fit together on an album, which we still don't have, and it's nowhere in sight because it costs a whole lot of money to do an album really well.
Sure.
So I don't know how it affected me, except for just like, take it seriously, Like, it was a moment of like, everything matters. Like the font, the way you present yourself, and trying to be professional in music and still stay completely childlike and open in the creative process is an interesting balancing act.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is a lot. But at the end of the day, it's really just a hobby, and it's the best when there's a free moment at the end of the night and I can just go out there and be completely open to whatever it is.
Alexis and I have talked about that before, like what makes a hobby versus a job, or even more so like an identity. Like, here's Alicia, she's a creative person. Like, for some reason that feels like a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm, it
People
is.
introduce you like that, and
Yeah.
like I'm thankful, but also just because you're good at something, it should make money. Like, I don't know how to make that connection.
Mm-hmm.
Well, funny story. My grandpa, Jordan's grandpa, actually, his step-grandfather, he showed up a while ago before y'all came. He is my favorite person in the whole world. I'm sorry, everybody else who's listening.
Sorry, Jordan.
His name is Jimmy Fields. I call him Grampy. He's like the freaking coolest.
I love that.
He tried to be so he went to the Martin Luther King Jr. I Had a Dream speech.
Oh, wow.
And he tried to join the Black Panthers.
That is fascinating.
He is a white man.
Mm. I was wondering. I just didn't know how to ask.
They
Sure.
would not let him. They would not let him. He lived in New York for a bit and had a pet lion.
Whoa.
Like, he's a legit incredible dude. Anyway, he showed up and he goes, "Hey, I just got back from the bank. I was paying this bill that I took out this loan a long time ago, and I was never able to pay it back, but they told me that I've brought them so much business that I
Interesting.
didn't have to pay it back, that
Wow.
they're forgiving me for this loan. But I haven't been able to stop thinking about it for
Interesting.
25 years.
Wow.
So I just went and paid it off. And I'm thinking, how freaking
Wow.
amazing is that? That just shows you right there. He's
Character,
like
man.
he's retired, has been retired. He just had to pay this money back because he said he would. And they already forgave him for it
Yeah,
and everything.
that's
But it just
fascinating.
showed that, like, we're so blinded by money. Just so
Yeah.
incredibly blinded by
We really
money.
are.
And that it just steals so much joy from everything. Like, I have a
Sure.
blast coming up here and making things.
Sure.
But when I go home and I'm like, oh my God, I have to pay the electric bill. Like, I don't want to put that pressure on my family or whatever. What can I do? What can I do? What
Sure.
can I do? Like, it just steals from it, and it's
Yeah.
going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine.
Well, and how much talent has no room to breathe in this world?
Yeah.
Because they're in survival mode from the time
Yeah.
they're born till the time they die.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean,
And like you said, being a musician, why should you have to give a shit what your font looks like?
right.
But
But
also,
you
I'm
do.
glad you do.
You do.
Fonts are very important, and I'm glad you care.
But see, we should
Sure.
be like, there should be some sort of way
Sure.
that you get to do that because
Sure.
it's your passion.
Everyone together to
Yeah.
make something
Because for
awesome.
me, it's like, yeah, to be an artist, to be a successful artist, I have to have a good website. I have to be known by all
Marketing
these
and-
people that I don't freaking know or like care to know. And it's just, it's a lot of work to do the one thing that
It is.
that makes you happy. I don't know.
It is. That's the privilege of like really big signed artists is like they just have teams of people doing all that. You know?
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about it. But yeah, money can be blinding and limiting, can be motivating, but it does stink that you have creative ambitions and goals, but they all have to be tempered by, but am I making money?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
well, anyway, there's a lot of questions left, but there's not a lot of time left
Okay.
for me. But I've greatly enjoyed talking to you guys about a conversation that I feel like was mostly uncomfortable for y'all.
love
It
being
was like the least amount of laughs we've ever had.
My bad.
We're like, oh, you want to talk about our
Alexis was hiding behind the cart when I mentioned it, and
Yeah.
she's like, "Yep, I'm whatever y'all want to do, I'll do it." Like, you sure? She's like, "Yep."
And that's
Pump
why
up.
the sangria is gone.
Thank
Well, thank
you, Nate.
you.
I love you.
Yeah, I love you guys. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, you can be on a lot. Yeah,
Let's go. Not hard every time.